Hello and welcome to Varn Vlog. And you might notice a few things different today because I had camera failure and this is my auxiliary camera. Yay! And I'm here with Elijah Emery. That's part of why we're late. The other part of why we're late, and not that I even announced this stream was going to happen at a particular time, but I knew it was supposed to happen about a half an hour ago, was that there was a major accident on the road near me when I went to go get a Coke.
But the Coke has been secured.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
So we're here. I have no idea what we're talking about today. This is a whatever podcast. The world's on fire, but as Elijah is in law school in some unnamed location, we're going to avoid talking about some of that. One, because didn't you pick a profession that doesn't matter anymore?
I mean, I don't know about that. I certainly hope I didn't pick I picked a profession that does matter. But certainly there's a lot of problems going on, a lot of difficulties.
Well, I would say believing in rule of law is almost quaint right now, but that's me. I'm not saying that as a norm that we shouldn't be promoting rule of law. I'm saying if you think it is operable.
Yeah, I've spent enough time on Blue Sky over the past beginning of the administration to know that it's very important to always say when you're saying something normative and when you're saying something descriptive as obviously as possible, because people will get confused.
Yeah. You think it's a problem on Blue Sky? The number of people who get mad at me for descriptions as if I'm making a judgment call is pretty incredible. So yeah. So what's up, Eli? What are you doing? How are you feeling about the world on fire?
I was, before this discussion, I was thinking back to our earlier discussions about the Trump regime, the law, etc. And I continue to think one of the things I believe I said then, which is that with every passing day, I'm simultaneously horrified and increasingly confident that this will not be a successful authoritarian consolidation. A lot of what's going on seems like it comes from a position of weakness rather than strength on the part of the administration. I have no idea,
I don't know. Threatening a war with like NATO and everyone on the planet seemingly in the last 3 days doesn't seem like it come from a place of strength, because we couldn't totally fight a war with Europe, Iran, and maybe, I don't know, Cuba and Mexico all at the same time.
Yeah, I mean,
and ourselves,
of course. Yeah, I mean, typically you see with authoritarian regimes that when they're, and Iran is a great example of this, when in the recent protests there, that real major violence occurs and is initiated by the state when it's in a position of weakness, a lot more than when it's in a position of strength. If you're in a wannabe authoritarian, you don't want your state violence perpetrators to be shooting random people usually, because you'd like the people to be on your side beforehand, which doesn't make it better for anyone suffering, but I think, in times like this, really all we can do is think, well, what do we think is going to happen? How do we prepare for that? How do we contextualize this historically, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I would say that one of the things that I look at this right now, and people will often compare it to everyone's favorite regime to compare everything to, which is the Nazis. And I pointed out to people about the difference in target, and I don't think people have generally understood what that would mean.
Wait, you
Um,
cut out for just a second. Difference in
no,
target. You were saying.
difference in target. I don't think people would generally understood what that would mean because you and I are the Hebraic persuasion, but even at the height of the population of Jewry in Germany in 1932, we were at most 2% of the German population. So you expand that out in Poland, where it's more like 5. And I just was pointing out to people, I'm like, you're talking about a target group in the United States that is 30% of 320 million people.
Meaning like immigrants and the
Immigrants,
Hispanics, etc.
liberals,
Yeah.
everybody. Like people of color, indigenous people. I mean, they're pretty indiscriminate in who they're attacking. MAGA can't win that. Not with current state capacity. And it's also a state capacity he's not particularly competent.
Yeah, I
so,
mean, for me, like one thing I do think in terms of the Nazi analogy, which is just a common one for any authoritarian regime, because it's so totalizing as basically the like as close to like the devil as you can get in the real world, is one striking thing about governance by the Third Reich was the incompetence. In movies and TV shows, it's often presented as like these are really like well-trained people successfully fighting against everybody else. That's why it was so difficult to beat them. But if you look at the history, the corruption, the personalism of rule, the competition between different sectors of the state and different viziers, the total lack of economic planning, basically from the point that.
Although the Nazis were more competent in economics than the Trump administration, frankly. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that might be true insofar as like there was at least like Keynesian spending, which did result in
spending and then not alienating every corporate overlord, and also they stopped inflation, not encouraged it.
I mean, there's a mix there. Like, definitely, they paid off a lot of loans by just robbing other countries, which did suppress the inflation rate relative to what it would have been without those influences. But basically, like the point is, like these are not competent people either. And in any authoritarian regime, there's a lot of corruption, a lot of personalism, and a big issue in terms of like different viziers fighting for control. And I think this personalism, the corruption, and the viziers is a real commonality.
Right.
I agree with this comment that was just
Schacht was actually quite smart. I've talked about Schachtism before. People, the leftists, always think I'm talking about Shachtmanism because they only know their history through Trotskyist and weird left cults, but they don't know about Schacht.
No, he also wasn't kept around during the war, because the second he started being like, oh, we actually have to like slow down rearmament or the inflation rate's going to rise, they just fired him and replaced him with somebody else. Which is economics.
The other thing to keep in mind is
to politics, but it doesn't follow what you want to happen.
If Hitler was not 80 and in somewhat questionable health,
I mean, like, at this point, I do think it's an open question how much Trump is aware of literally anything going on. Another thing is, I think you could probably count on the fact that Goebbels or Himmler was not showing their boss AI generated images and telling him, oh, this is what's going on. Whereas I would not be that surprised if it came out later that Miller or Vance or whoever else is just like pumping Trump up with a diet of SOAR videos. Which
yeah.
I mean, this is pure speculation. What I mostly want to highlight is how they're really not thinking any of this through.
No, that's clear.
Which again,
go ahead.
Doesn't mean that the bad things are not bad. It just speaks to the point I started with, which is that this is not a strong regime. This is an extremely weak one, and that makes them more dangerous at present.
No, well, it's clear that they were even losing popularity amongst their own base until the Maduro maneuver, and now their base is invested in doubling down because they kind of have to. I mean, when it's clear that this kind of stuff is just putting you at odds with the rest of society, your choices are to bail or double down, which has what I like to call a reduction effect, which means, what is left gets more concentrated.
Yeah.
So the people who are left are the people most devoted to the cause, most willing to say whatever. We don't know anything about. I mean, I'm not saying like when he's not going to live forever. But I'm not assuming he's going to die during this administration. In fact, honestly, people, if you think you want that, I really don't. Look at the loyalists he's put in charge and how much infighting there will immediately be, and what that would cost. With a person who's likely
Death of Stalin remake.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to the good Dr. Professor Kuber, and we don't agree on much a lot of the time. But we both said that, we could easily see J.D. Vance, since we already know J.D. Vance believes in nothing Lebowski, absolutely fucking nothing. I mean, he's taking the most right nationalist stances now, and it's pretty clear that he doesn't actually really believe that shit. But it's also clear that he was a never Trumper just 8 years ago. So he could be anything. I could see him and Miller going into a Beria Khrushchev fight, and we get, and Miller. I actually think Miller would be cooped by the military, but I'll be honest with you. If they continue the Greenland stuff, I actually don't know what happens, because I don't think the military is looking forward to dissolving NATO over a man's ego.
Yeah, I mean, the Greenland stuff is definitely, for me, one of the scariest things going on right now. Going to war with our own nuclear armed allies over this strip of territory that we already have deals with to basically extract mineral resources and do nuclear positioning is extreme. Yeah, I mean, it's insane. It's completely insane. And I don't think we'll invade.
You lost your sound, buddy, and we're live, so I can't fix it. All right. Well, I don't think he'll invade. I don't think he will either. I think he'll keep doing tariffs until the Supreme Court takes it away, which I was fairly certain they were gonna take it away, but maybe they feel sufficiently threatened, because they sure are keeping their damn mouth shut on that ruling.
Yeah, I think that'll probably come out next week. My assumption is that tariff authority will be restricted, based on the oral arguments.
Yeah, I mean, they tend to indicate where they're going to go. And by the way, you sound way better now. You no longer sound like you're an airplane locker. Sorry about all the technical difficulties. You guys are going to have to deal with Dark Varn. I have yet another camera somewhere, but I don't have time to dig it up right now. I don't know that Denmark and NATO were just going to roll over on this one. I don't know why they wouldn't roll over, but if they were going to, it would have made sense for them to do it. I think they're testing our own internal state capacity in some ways. By that I mean, how much of the older apparatus has already been purged?
I think
that's not clear
Yeah.
in the military at all. Like,
I think one other thing to look at is like troop movements going on right now. And there's a lot more going on in the Middle East to prepare for strikes on Iran than in the North Atlantic.
and there's also troop movements around the border, but there's not, which I don't think is for Mexico either, because despite all the tough talk on Mexico, the U.S. is actively giving Steinbaum permission to ship oil to Cuba. So there's absolutely, like, that talk seems to be bluster too. I think we also have to remember this man will lie bald face about things he has no intention of doing or no power to do. I mean, like, how many economic recovery things has been suggested in the last year that have come to nothing?
Or like the credit card thing he just announced, where he's like, we're capping interest rates, you know,
with
like
what authority?
Like there's just nothing is going to happen there.
Or we're changing the mortgages. No, you're not.
Yeah.
The only thing you seem to be able to do is to do frivolous investigations from the DOJ,
which are immediately thrown out.
Which are immediately thrown out in court.
Yeah. Which is like another thing. Like we started with the joke about, you know, have I entered a collapsing profession? And despite the Supreme Court being, you know, mealy-mouthed and inadequate, I think, to the moment, district courts and appeals courts have mostly struck me as doing the right thing. And that, I think that's pretty significant. Like, you know, there's no feds in Los Angeles at this point. They've been taken out of Chicago, as far as I'm aware, in response to judicial decrees. And they don't have the capacity to go everywhere at once.
No, that's what everyone's like. Oh, they're gonna declare martial law. I'm like, one, the Insurrection Act is not martial law. Two, it's not for the country as a whole generally.
Yeah,
it's for a specific action and area. And three, okay, he took out Minnesota, but it would be very hard to imagine with what capacity could they even, like, ICE, even though I was telling someone about this, they are already so desperate for people, despite the fact ICE has the money of the 13th largest military on the planet. It does not have the people of the 13th largest military.
There's a lot of people dropping it also. Like there's, you know, there's been, I think in lawfare, I don't remember where, some interviews with like career people at DHS, because I think it's worth remembering that many of the people who joined ICE, and this isn't like a defensive thing, it's just a fact, joined like 5 years ago when a lot of their activities were
normal.
Yeah, we're pretty normal. Like, which is not
when they weren't being asked to do things where potentially they could be held legally liable as soon as this administration is gone.
Yeah, I mean, like it was considered like a pretty like cushy job before. Like you didn't see big arrests because most of something like 85% of arrests and deportations were tied to handovers at prisons. You know, a lot of this stuff we see now is really like Border Patrol stuff, because Border Patrol has always been a little more like rough and tumble.
A little more like they work in basically a lawless area. Yes, like yes. They are documented doing things that's illegal for everybody else to do.
Yeah, no, for yeah. And like they are,
and Bombino and his crew are actually explicitly border control. Like that needs to be noted. Like they put border control in charge of this and took ICE out of it. Partly because ICE was too professional for them.
Yeah, and then a lot of, to return to the earlier point, like a lot of the people who joined 5 years ago, who were like career law enforcement officers, are leaving, which means that the people who remain are worse, because they have like no or very little professionalism. But it also means that the numbers go down, and if you have fewer guys, it's harder to do the thing you want to do.
So, I mean, someone was asking to me about, are these a brown shirts? I'm like, well, this is not paramilitary.
Yeah, these are state.
These are state actors. Like, Yeah, I mean, half of the old paramilitary people entered ICE. I mean, it's come out that like half the Proud Boys are in there, and
Yeah.
but that should surprise nobody.
Yeah, I mean, I think more surprising, or not really more surprising, but I think definitely more important in terms of the balance of state forces is how much local police are getting really pissed off about this. Like there was this very revealing interview in the New York Times with the head of the Minnesota Police Department, where I mean, this is not like a a liberal guy, but he was pretty direct in his criticism of the actions of DHS in Minnesota, and I think this probably could speak for a large number of police officers there. Um, Meaning, like, if you're not getting local forces on your side, it is even more difficult to conduct an occupation of an American city than it was before.
Now, this is a big difference between us. I have no faith in the Democrats at all. You have some faith in them, kind of. Where do you, how are you? I mean, it feels to me like, that we've seen Newsom be mealy mouthed with Shapiro in a way that like made no damn sense. I don't even know why he did
Or
that.
like politically no sense also.
I mean, the man may have scuttled his ability to convince progressives to vote for him in 2028, assuming that we have an election then. Assuming that there's still a country then.
I mean, we will have an election unless there's a nuclear war.
I don't know, man. I think a lot of people have said a lot of stuff that we were going to fucking do that we have not done. I just want to point that out to everybody. Like, I got people came on the show who make normal stuff, say normal shit, and said that like Trump 2 was going to be just like Trump 1. I'm going to give you credit, Elijah. You didn't, but we explicitly talked about this, but other people did. And not just the people I get mad at on Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, with the election thing, it's just a numbers game. Like we have in this country very federalized elections. We literally had elections 2 months ago, which resulted in a handover of power from Republican governors to Democratic governors.
But that's probably why. Am I talking about Studebaker? I'm talking about Studebaker and Besner and some people that I won't mention because they make me mad every time I think about their names and curse them.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there won't be manipulation in terms of like media or intimidation. It's just that like if they don't have the numbers to occupy Minneapolis,
they don't have the numbers to occupy every blue city in the country because what it would require.
It's just completely impossible. Which is like, okay, they can't do the worst thing. Great.
Yeah. When we say federalized, we mean that in the legal sense, meaning that it is
state run and local.
It is state run.
Yeah.
Federalized here means federal, like federated. I know it's confusing because in America we also use federalized to mean central government, but that's not what it means anywhere else.
Yeah. Sorry. I'll be a little more cognizant of the fact we have an international audience.
Yeah, we have an international. Well, also actually that could be in America because remember, I think in the U.S. we use federal in 2 different ways.
Yeah, that's also
we use federalized to mean assumed by the federal government, and we also we use it to mean state run, which is confusing as hell. Actually,
it's a messy country. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Trump 2 has been the guardrails.
One disaster spectacle at another with no real coherence. I mean, this is actually a difference. There isn't. We've had how many crises in how many months, like, and yet, and yet, I mean, the big fear is one. Dems show no. They don't even show a want to enforce law and order if they come back into power.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the person. Like, I'm not. There's a lot about like who winds up being Senate Majority Leader or House Majority Leader or President if the Dems come into power in terms of like what the response looks like, because there are some people who are total concessionaries and there's some people who are fighters. And
Who's
that's,
the fighter? I want to know who you think they are. Like,
I mean, I think like Spanberger's first day in office has been pretty good, insofar as like immediately permitting like redistricting in Virginia, suspending all cooperation between the Virginia State Police and ICE. Like, fighter's relative, right? But there is
okay, so
a
Spanberger,
willingness.
Mamdani's actually been. I'm actually going to say this. Mamdani's been better than I expected him to be.
Yeah, I
So
like
far.
him. I think he's done
Yeah,
great
well,
so
I
far.
figured you would like him, but
He's a
but no,
young
I've actually been surprised that he's even realized some things that I've argued with the DSA about, like, hey, you can't do just by taxing the rich, you're going to have to get state funds. And like, he seems to have scared Hochuli enough to get state funds
did like a
significantly.
charm offensive. It's amazing. I think Tim Walz and Frey have really been insufficient. They've totally failed to rise to the moment in Minneapolis,
Which is surprising how much Tim Walz has failed.
Yeah.
I actually have been a little bit like, look, people know me, I put most of the Democrats in camps if I had my way, and you know that, Elijah, and you're always trying to talk me out of it. But like, and Adam too sounds like me, Eli.
Yeah, I read that profile. It was a little goofy.
Yeah, but I'm just like, when Adam too sounds like Varn, the Democrats have messed up.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I mean, I'm not. I'm
Will
not.
Stancil now sounds like he's Antifa. I don't know what's going on.
He's so great. I love him now. No, like I'm not saying like the Democrats have done a good job. I'm saying some Democrats have risen to the moment, and most have not. And really, I'd say like the ones to look for are not going to be representatives or senators, because they don't have that much of an ability to do anything. I'm tracking more what are mayors up to, what are governors up to.
Well, this is the problem with the Dems since, and I don't know why, but they have tracked towards senators as candidates now since the Clinton years, since the end of the Clinton years, and that has, with the exception of Barack Obama, gone horribly every time. And I suspect it's because a lot of heavily blue state Democratic governors have the baggage of being heavily blue state Democratic governors. I don't want Gavin Newsom to be president, but
I think he should be Secretary of Revenge.
Okay, so you want to put Gavin Newsom in charge of the Cheka, and
we're not going into details. This would have to be a congressionally authorized agency.
Okay. So we need to, but so you're now saying abolish the DHS and bring back the NKVD. This is Elijah's stance, not mine. Abolish the DHS, bring back the NKVD. Like,
I'm certainly pro abolishing DHS. I think, unlike the NKVD, it would be sufficient to use law enforcement to prosecute people who have failed to follow the law, to put probably most of the current Trump administration into jail.
But do you think they were going to even try to do that? That's my question. Because
I have no idea. I mean, this is
my thing is, like, they didn't do it during the Bush administration, and now it's like, because of that, and because of also doubling down on unitary executive theory, which the Democrats have done, we are here. There is a direct line from Eisenhower and FDR for sure, but really, if you want to get like technical and like more from Nixon to Reagan, from Reagan to Clinton, from Clinton to George W. Bush to Obama to here. There is there's a direct line here, but the prior times, they would only disobey the law outside of the country.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this comes back to, like, to put it in constitutional terms, just like the legislature's self-abolishment, basically.
Oh,
Like,
it has been doing that since the fucking 50s, but yes.
yeah, I mean, like, if the GOP in Congress wanted to, they could remove Trump from office tomorrow, right? Like, it's not that there's no mechanism for removal. It's just that the Republicans don't want to do it. And it's because, like the founders, like this was their worst fear. They wrote constantly about an extremely, dangerous, vengeful executive wreaking havoc on the country, because that's the thing they were worried about in part. The experience of the King of England. They just assumed that the other branches of government would countervail that because they'd be jealous of their own
Well, the
power.
veniality. Okay, this is actually a challenge to me and some of my friends who believe the legislature really is actually the center of democracy, not the executive, and that's always been true. And the challenge that is, there is a sense in which in the legislature you see elite capture to the point of not just not doing your job, but not wanting to do your job as a condition of staying in the legislature.
Yeah,
because doing your job has a risk assessed to it. Not doing your job doesn't. And here we are.
On the other hand, there have been like minor strikeouts. Like I think it is worth like remembering that the Epstein files forced Trump to sign a bill that he absolutely did not want to have happen.
Yeah, but they're not forcing the judiciary to enforce that bill.
Yeah, I'd have to look more into who has standing to sue about that.
So that's the problem, is we sue over everything.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's
I know you're going to tell me why this is good.
I'm not going to say it's good. I'm going to say it's you could do other things, right? Like if you could subpoena different members of the Trump administration, have them bring in documents, read them into the congressional record. You could do inherent contempt, fining people in the administration to their personal accounts every day. The problem is that every single one of these mechanisms relies basically on having a majority in one of the houses of Congress, which is not the case now, and is the reason why what people are really mad about in terms of the Democrats is their messaging, which is the right thing to be mad at them about. Like they don't have at the federal level that much ability to do anything, but they could be mad about it. And I think that's what people want. They don't want them to talk about, they don't want Chuck Schumer to be like, yeah, attacking Maduro and occupying Minnesota is a distraction from the Epstein files and, the affordability crisis. Like they want people to be like, ICE, Trump, stop, shooting people in the streets. Don't walk us into war with any of these countries,
or ourselves.
I
mean, there's been twice in a year where there's been a non-zero chance where you could have a National Guard shooting on some element of the federal government. It's very low, that non-zero chance, but I haven't lived in a time where it was more than like 0.1 for most of my life.
I mean, it's pretty bad. On the other hand, like the guards, when they've been called up, are they're less willing to follow illegal orders by far than ICE is.
This would also be true for the military. I mean, for apparently international waters, but
you see in DC, which, as far as I'm aware, still has the National Guard walking around.
Right, and they don't do what Border Patrol does because they know that they would get an SOP thrown at them, and then they'd have to, they can end up in Leavenworth, which with Border Patrol's been pulling these stunts at the border forever.
Yeah,
because the border is essentially lawless. I mean, that's kind of its definition.
Yeah, and it literally, from a legal perspective, is there is a lot that binds the government elsewhere and does not at the border. Right. So, for example, you have much bigger officer immunity at the border than you do within the interior. But never total immunity. Like this is one thing which I would love to see from Democrats in state and local offices, which is to arrest officials who are committing crimes. Like if
I would love to Article 3, Section 3, Stephen Miller, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like it's there is no total immunity, no matter what the government is saying for law enforcement officers who commit crimes. There is some immunity. There's going to be legal machinations to
There's qualified immunity, and
there's
most of it's
qualified
from
immunity,
outside.
but like there's a lot of ultra vires things going on. Ultra vires meaning like outside, to have immunity, you need to be doing something officially in a reasonable manner. You need both of those things. And so even if you could say that detaining random people is part of the official responsibilities, which it's not, the reasonability comes into play. So for example, in the terrible Renee Good shooting, there's no reasonability there. You can't, even if you're officially permitted to stop somebody and ask for identification,
which they're not.
Which they're not in most circumstances. Certainly not if somebody's not like raising suspicion in a reasonable way, as was the case here. You're definitely not reasonably allowed to step in front of someone's car and shoot them 3 times in the head, and then prevent medical professionals in the area from accessing them. Like this would defeat qualified immunity immediately.
Yeah, I was about to say it's explicit. Actually, there's explicit stuff in there about them doing this very thing because the police have done it.
Yeah.
Which is to step in front of a car that actually by itself, according to the feds on documents, removes self-defense defenses.
Yeah, I mean, it removes qualified immunity.
Yeah. I think it removed. I think I was reading a statute where it removes even a self-defense defense, and like to step in front of the car automatically does that because of the likelihood of this happening.
Yeah. We're getting some comments.
But that said, Border Patrol's been caught doing that like 71 times on the border. But again, it's on the border.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that just because something is the law means it's going to be followed. Since obviously
not
going on right now, but you could if you were a competent and ambitious state or local official, be trying to prosecute these things a lot more. We had a comment earlier about how I think the chief of police in Philly just said that they're going to arrest ICE officials who break the law. And that's the type of thing that I think would be good. There's, in terms of that last comment that just came in, that it'd be a case argued rationally in front of an impartial judge. I do think most of the judges would be impartial. I think the whoever's going against
the argue rationally part is a big leap because I haven't seen much out of the DOJ that's rational.
Yeah, the DOJ is, but they've been losing all the time because they're not arguing rationally, and that's been having an effect. Not as big of an effect as people would want, but definitely an effect.
Okay. Varn, what do you think about the military during the whole second Trump presidency? So I've been surprised at how they rolled over for Hexif to the extent that they did. A whole lot of it's been purged. One thing I'll say, though, that if they were actually planning for a civil war, purging the military of your top people but letting them walk away is real stupid. Because they now hate you and they're still around. So I don't know. I will say that I've been interested because we have not heard about the Joint Chiefs pushing back on Trump this time the way we heard about it last time, even when his Joint Chiefs until this week, and we did hear it about Greenland.
Yeah, I assume there's a lot of stuff going on like underneath in terms of delaying things.
We've also heard about Hexef representing Brass's concern about Trump deploying military within U.S. borders. That also came out. So there is pushback even from this brass. We don't hear about it as much, but
there's also
our
been
media
way
is
more
more degraded
purges
too.
this time around. There's been way more purges this time around, which is another reason we're not hearing about it, as you mentioned earlier. So I don't think there's going to be like a military coup. I think that I think the Joint Chiefs want to avoid things rather than
of course. I think our Joint Chiefs are incredibly cautious. But I mean, if I do think, for example, if Trump tried to install himself as God King, I don't think that would actually be easy.
No, I don't think it would be easy either. I mean, my assumption right now is, and I could be wrong about this, that things are going to continue getting crazier and worse. The Democrats are going to win the House and the Senate this year, especially if
which I did not think was possible until this year. But I do not think they're going to win enough to be able to get through an impeachment, even with some Republican defectors.
Not a conviction, an impeachment. Yeah.
You think? I want a conviction. I want a conviction on several things, but no.
Yeah. Well, just because to do an impeachment, you need a majority in the House. To do a conviction, you need the 2/3 in the Senate. Which, is what happened the first two Trump impeachments. There was a majority in the House to impeach, but not a majority, the sufficient majority to.
I've been wondering if maybe the strategy would be to impeach his underlings, where you could get more Republicans to defect.
I think that's pretty
wrong about that.
You can do impeachments of any civil officer, which includes cabinet.
Like, I would love to see like Stephen Miller impeached.
Yeah. Kristi Noem, I think, would likely be impeached. And it's really basically.
I don't think you even get enough Republicans to get Kristi Noem through. Honestly, maybe I'm being sanguine, but I do think you could probably do that.
I have no idea. I mean, I don't know what it is going to look like a year from now. I think that I'm willing to make the bet that there are going to be midterm elections, which the Democrats will win, and then the situation will be different. Which is that's not a big prediction of anything. It's just that things will keep moving along, and I don't think Trump's going to succeed in making himself God King, though I do think he's going to mess up a lot more before he's out.
But my thing is Elijah, what the Dems, here's what I was telling someone else who was freaking out about this. A left person's like, "Oh, you see irregularities in the election." I'm like, "Yeah, we're going to see that, but it's a lot harder to pull off at the." What's likely to happen is red states are going to agree, and it's going to have a marginal effect there, but only marginal. Blue, I can't see Trump going up against California is a much bigger deal than Trump going up against Minneapolis, and that it'd be really hard for him to do. I also think the taste for this is going to turn people off of working with the federal government. Well, I know people in my life who used to work for the government who have now left and never intend to work for the U.S. government again, ever.
Yeah.
I mean, and including a person I'm married to. So this is a major shift. For a whole lot of people who won't trust the government again. I know that I don't have my get out bag packed yet, but I now have a plan for one. And not because I think it would win. I actually look at this and go, okay, if things go really, really south, America, I mean, ICE agents can't fucking walk in the snow. Most of the people making threats at me have seen less active combat than me, even if they're in the military. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what high BMI goes to war looks like.
I mean, it looks like a lot of hype videos on Twitter and practically tons of federal officials getting bogged down in random cities by people with cameras.
Yeah. If it's true war, people with Mausers. like
Yeah, I mean-
because they're not used to this. That's the other thing. They're really not. And neither are we. I mean, like we live in a country where like what 20% of the people have like 85 bajillion guns, but like no one really knows how to use them in an actual scenario where it would matter.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
people,
yeah, I don't think we're getting to the I mean, I think like a years of lead scenario is more likely and maybe happening right now than like civil war. But you know, the feds are trying to basically do like auto secession by refusing to give any money to blue states and cities, and then
which
immediately
they keep on getting strike down, but if it ever sticks, it's like, well, then
No,
they're not.
it's like a 2-day thing. The
Yeah.
judge immediately is like, no, you can't do this. Because that's like the basic agreement is that we all give money to the federal government from the states and then they give it back in various
Which would trigger. I told people what it could trigger. Just I'll walk you through my argument, Eli, see if you think you agree with me. If the judges didn't strike it down, a state would start withholding federal taxes, which in and of itself would trigger Texas versus right, which automatically makes the state legislature and government dissolute and in rebellion, which no state legislature and government would accept, which is designed, and it's designed to do this, would trigger a civil war. That's what Texas versus right is designed to do.
Yeah.
That's the threat. Is
I guess my perspective on that is that step one, the judiciary not stopping it is I think
it's pretty low.
It's super low. Like
I actually agree with you. It's super low because they understand that. Like the judiciary understands what now people go, we're already in a civil war, called civil war. No, you're not. You have no idea. Like civil wars are the bloodiest form of war. We have a 8 out of 100,000 murder rate. You don't know what a war looks like.
Yeah. I mean, like we have way more political violence than we have in recent history.
When you were alive, but actually we're at a historical political violence norm.
Yeah.
I want to I do want to tell people this. Most of us have grown up in a time period with relatively little political violence compared to most of the rest of U.S. history. Now we haven't had since the Civil War a lot of, well, no, that's not true. We haven't had since World War II. That's true. A lot of mass political violence, but assassinations and like years. Does anyone remember the number of bombings and assassinations in the fucking 70s?
Yeah, I mean,
so there's way more in the 70s. Do I think we're in a Cold War? Yeah, no. It is clear there's about 20% of this country that will follow this leader off of a cliff if that's what the leader says to do. But they're beginning to pay for it. And it was an easy thing to do from 2016 to 2020 because all you were going to lose is social ostracism. Now, I mean, it's going to be interesting how the GOP makes corporate America feel like they can trust them again. Because after this, they're not going to, particularly anyone who's not in private equity.
Yeah. I mean, even the people like in finance in various ways are not really pleased, considering like last week the admin attempted to indict Jerome Powell.
Right.
Like there was
a rush on silver. Like people were like, oh, the stock market didn't go down. I'm like, because the stock market's all tied into Nvidia. That's not going to go down until. And for those of you who don't realize why they're incorporating AI into everything, it's a way to bail out the tech companies without bailing out the tech companies. That's maybe not the only reason they're doing it, but it really does seem like this partly what's going on there.
I'm at the point where like a lot of the time when I tune into various discussions about like what are they doing, like I don't think that I don't think that there's any thought going on in anything. Like we are in like maybe the most anti-materialist politics in human history since the dawn of industrialization.
I actually was thinking about the assumption that our enemies are rational, that most that most Marxists have made, and we've like made just so stories to explain how this was all rational. I can't do that anymore.
No, I mean, like I was listening to the Venezuela podcast you did, and you know there was some discussion about like what's the interest? Is it about the oil? It is about the oil, but it's about Trump being like, oil, that's money. We take the money, we make money. Like it's
and we invested in an offshore account in Qatar.
Yeah, like it's literally just making things up, I think. Like there's no it's like it's a hamster running on a wheel in here for
I will say this. When I was talking about this, when Exxon responded to that, it was clear that Exxon wanted them to do more security or get out, because they are asking for a massive upfront investment for something that's going to suppress oil prices.
Yeah, none of the oil companies want this. Like
right.
One big difference with Iraq in 2003 is you know, you could make a credible argument if you're like thinking from a security perspective. Well, if we increase the international oil price sufficiently to make it viable to produce crude via fracking in Canada and parts of the United States, then America gets oil independent, which is a big security boon. Like this is like a rational evil person thing to do, or like NatSec brand thing to do. Venezuela does not exist. This is not the situation there. It's just like vibes go in. And there are some rational actors within the administration, but their goals are different. Like I think Rubio's a rational actor.
Yeah, he's an evil rational actor, but he is one.
And he wants to destabilize Venezuela to put pressure on Cuba so that the Cuban communist regime will fall, which is like his big geopolitical goal that he's had for his entire career.
But if I was China, man, I would have thought I would have been glad that I would have been trying to make Trump in a lab. That's what like.
No, I mean,
like you talk about helping the Chinese economy, which was actually stalling at the end of the Biden administration. It's now doing fine. But that's what I told people whenever it's like, oh, you know, what's going to take out America? I'm like, America's going to take out America. We've always been the biggest threat to ourselves.
There's this great poll from like 2018 where it asked Americans who they think the biggest geopolitical adversary to the United States is. And 2% of people responded, the United States. And I'm like, wow, those 2% were so right. Like, that was you?
I would have been one of those 2%, because I'm just like, we are the enemy of us. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's really remarkable.
If you looked at like Fortress North America, Integrated Canada and Mexico, the ability to pivot off, like we were pivoting off of energy. Now, I admit the Dems did a bad job of doing government subsidies for clean energy and stuff. They really did. It's been a bad job. What they actually did was hype up industries like Elon Musk and you know, focused on top end consumers and which is a stupid way to build a mass new infrastructure project. It's incredibly stupid.
Yeah.
But they had a vision, kinda, even if they were dumb about it. My fear though, Elijah, is that technical capacity in this country is eroded from over specialization. I'm not saying that people don't have skills, or they're stupid. That's not true. I don't think people are, well, maybe people coming up after you in college are, but I don't think people in general are dumber. I don't think cognition really works that way. Mm-hmm. I think average cognition is slightly consistent, going better when times are peaceful. Times are not peaceful anymore, so you're not going to see that in the same way. I also don't really believe in exceptional national characters one way or the other. Like, I don't believe a people is any more evil than another people. They're just incentivized poorly. You know, because I don't know what would make people inherently evil in that sense. Which I know, you know, I know that probably gets people to thinking, well, what's my point on this? But I think there's a whole lot of like moralizing about this. It isn't particularly helpful. Why do people in America make stupid decisions? Somebody was like telling me the other day, the American consumers don't want to buy small cars, and I was like, well, people who are in the car market right now are in the top 30% of the income bracket, or they're buying cars for velving good reasons. All right. If that was not the case, I don't know that you would see the car purchasing dynamics that you're seeing right now, because the median car age on the road is like 9 years or something right now. It's really high.
Yeah.
And they don't make small new cars really domestically. And our market is now geared almost totally luxury, huh?
I'm just responding to the chat that this is live.
Yeah, this is live.
Continue.
So our market is almost totally luxury in a way, and that's driving consumer consumption. And that's what we catered to with our EVs too. EVs were catered as a luxury good for conscious consumers who wanted to prove something. And I don't know, I kind of think people got what they wanted with the decimation of a lot of the PMC, and now you guys like, oh, it didn't turn out to be socialism. No fucking shit, morons.
Look, I'm PMC, and I'm tired of apologizing. All right. We love the PMC. It's a big tent.
I mean, I don't. I think it, but I don't hate it either. It's a strata. It's a strata of several classes that has mixed motivations, but has skills. I hate to tell you, but it isn't modernly that the professionals have been the people dominating socialism. That is the entire history of socialism. Anarchists throw that at us. The thing is, when Marx talks about this, he talks about professionals throwing their lot in with the working class. Like, when professionals are being proletarianized, there's reasons to think that they would.
Yeah, and that is
bitching about it is weird.
Yeah, that is the basis of like most left-wing politics in the United States over the past decade, is proletarianizing professionals. Like, those are the most loyal Zoran voters, AOC voters, etc. It's downwardly mobile elites who are highly educated. Yeah, I mean,
I know that people like their mate one, and they like the. Here's the thing about all those things about those particular visions of the working class, though. In every one of those movies, they lose. Every single one of them. And historically, they mostly lost. All right. The reason why is racism is a real reason why the Mason-Dixon line was almost a union belt. So I grew up without unions hardly around, because I grew up in the Deep South. And I don't believe like in these things that you saw pushed 10 years ago in liberal circles about like there being 7 nations in the United States, and there's some weird genetic character about the Scotch Irish being inherently reactionary. I say this is half, I'm a quarter Hebraic, a quarter Slavic, and half Scotch Irish. Like, and you know what all of that means? Nothing. But my point on this is just like, it was playing racist off each other, because it was kind of an evilly effective scam, because you could go in, you could get liberals to back you for like bringing in black strike breakers, and then you would the two people would associate with each other as enemies, and that was perpetuated, particularly in Appalachia. And I know like it feels good to stand up to cops with guns and Pinkertons with guns. My problem is you don't have Zooms and nuclear weapons. You don't have drones and nuclear weapons. You might have drones actually, but you don't have nuclear weapons. You don't have the same kind of drones. You don't have cluster bombs. You don't have silent bombs. Like, the illusion of that, that 19th century stuff won't work in the same way now.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to our old friend Lash and his "Is Revolution Obsolete" essay, which I still think about all the time. Where it's like that, you know, in the American context, you don't have you don't have an equivalent militarily to match the state. You're not going to take it over by force.
Well, and the other thing that I tell people, people got really, really mad at me when I was like, if you were serious about this, you would also need to be in the military. And people, man, you want to talk every time I've ever said that. But like, I'm like, man, like people will call me a reactionary because I used to work for a prison guard. You know how I know how to shoot? Like, you know, I've gotten weapons training.
Yeah.
Like, not even particularly great weapons training, but you know, enough. And like, and that's why I could do stuff like when people were talking bullshit about Taylor Robinson and thinking it needed to be a sniper rifle, and somehow Mossad infiltrated a fucking 21-year-old former libertarian who only became a liberal in the last year because he fell in love with his trans roommate. But somehow Mossad was involved. I'm like, you can do that with a Mauser, and if you have any training in long distance hunting, which you'd have to have in southern Utah, which is where this kid was from,
Yeah.
you'd be able to make a shot at 200 yards from that height. Also, I know this campus. This is not University of Utah. This is a fucking commuter school. Like, but like anyone with any serious combat training in the area, or any even serious hunting training in the area, would have known that. But so many people don't have it. Even if they play with guns, they seem to be out of their fucking mind and like have no idea what they're talking about, the difficulty of shots or anything like that. Because I'm not even that great of a shot. I could have made that shot.
I have received no firearms training and have fired a gun exactly one time in my life. So, yeah. So I'm not
typical Zoomer.
Typical Zoomer. Yeah, I mean, I think one thing this reminds me of is that there's a lot of discussion online now about like, should people be buying, you know, guns, preparing to resist?
No,
definitely.
I'm just gonna tell you this as a person with combat stuff. No, if you need it, if you really need it, you'll get it when you need it, and you're not gonna get it by legal means anyway. And if you don't need it, it's a liability for yourself. Like you're be by yourself and pull a handgun on an ICE officer, you're gonna get blown away.
Yeah, and especially in the places where, you know, ICE and DHS are operating, what really deters them is your camera, not your, you know, not having a gun.
I mean, when people like the gun stuff, I'm like, yeah, if 1,000 of us showed up with AKs and were trained, then like, yeah, I mean, like that's why, like, you know, I'm not saying it never has a place, unlike Elijah, but I wouldn't say it on a podcast, so we're not going to talk about that beyond this point. But what I will tell you is, like, in general, don't rush out. If you want to feel like you want to protect yourself, go to the range, win a weapon, train. Absolutely. I'll tell you to do that any day of the week. But like, learn medicine. Learn how to field dress a room with a tampon.
Learn how to disarm somebody without a weapon.
Yeah, that's also pretty useful. Thumbs are your friend. Also stuff I learned as a former corrections officer. You know, don't rush in to be an actionist when you don't know what you're rushing into. Because I'll tell you what happens. All right. And this take gets me in trouble. I'll just admit this. I think Kyle Rittenhouse's killing of those two individuals and that shooting of the one guy in the head was utterly unjustified and unjust. I don't want, this is not a defense of that. But you had a guy who had a history of violence, with running out of duty to the skateboard, that been corralled by the cops into an area where there were basically child soldiers. Like, you need way more discipline than that. And that doesn't mean that it was his fault what happened to him. His past is irrelevant to what happened to him. I know people, when I hear this, they get mad. And I'm not saying that, I'm not making a moral judgment here. That guy did not need to die.
Of the shooting?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But I'm talking about, like, people get mad at Rittenhouse and, like, yeah, fuck that kid. But, like, fine. But they ignored the cops corralled them there. There were people who were armed on both sides, actually. In fact, the third guy who got shot pulled out a gun. That's why I got shot in the hand. And it was totally undisciplined, because usually leftist marches are. I've been to plenty. I've seen what they do. I've seen how they get in confrontations with the cops. It usually does not go well.
Yeah, I'm not even sure from a lot of this how many of the people involved in that incident were like leftist marchers versus
Just people who happen to be there that day.
People happen to be there, which is the case.
No, the two people that were shot, like, they if you look at their histories, they had a history of instability, and I'll just leave it at that, because I don't want to, like, relitigate this, because it's not relevant to the killing. It should have never happened. Rittenhouse should have been charged with manslaughter, in my personal opinion, and he should be in jail. But I don't think you'd ever get him a murder legally. Sorry, I know that that's unpopular, and yes, it's partly political, but, like, I don't think that would have ever happened. But that's the kind of stuff that you really have to watch out for. Like, and like a disciplined, if you go out there with a gun in that scenario and stuff like that pops off, you are a target.
In terms of discipline, I think one thing which is also important to remember is most of the time you're not training as somebody attempting to resist oppressive forces to, like, shoot back in the American context. Like, the civil rights marchers were so successful because they were uber disciplined. Many of the union fights that we remember so heroically were extraordinarily disciplined enterprises.
Right. And when they shot back, they did so only under severe duress. They had been shot for days before they shot back.
Yeah. And in Minneapolis right now, you know, there's, I think, a lot of discipline going on to calm down the situation and demonstrate. Yeah, this is
my fucking city.
Yeah.
Like when Thomas talks about that, I'm like, that was my city. I was here that night. Like, I was not actually at the No Kings protest, because I don't go to those things, because I don't believe in that kind of protesting. But, like, I got blocked because of that shooting. I got stuck on the fucking road.
I have a great No King story.
Okay, tell us a No King story while I go get a Coke.
So I was at the No Kings protest in New York, and you know, I'm marching. Everybody's having a very good time. The vibes are great, and there's this dude on the side, who's like, looks a little confused. He leans over to me and goes, "Yo, what is this?" I'm like, "This it's a protest, like No Kings protest against the government." He goes, "Really? Something's going on in the government?" He has no idea what's up. "What are you protesting?" And I know at that point that there's one thing I can say to get him to agree. And I go, "People are here for different reasons. Me, I'm protesting that the Epstein files haven't been released yet." And this guy goes, "The Epstein files? I can get into that." And then he joined the march. Really funny. Great story. While Varn's getting his Coke, if anybody has any questions in the chat for me, pop them in there and I'll respond. Oh, he's back, I think. Favorite legal theory? I don't know. It depends on the situation. What do I think is going to happen in Minnesota? I think that the feds are going to pull out at some point pretty soon. You're already seeing declines in the number of people there. I think that they've taken, like, way too many hits in the media and look really embarrassing, and so they're going to leave. ICE popularity plummeting, good thing.
I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah, there's a majority now in favor of abolishing ICE, I believe.
Yeah, that is crazy to me. And then there's and disapproval is even higher than that.
Yeah. I'm gonna respond to Carl just very quickly.
Okay,
The
Carl.
birthright citizenship case, which we discussed on the podcast earlier, I believe it was rejected, but then appealed upward. It's very mysterious to me why it's been taking as long as it has, though I assume you're going to see a 9-0 or 8-1 decision in favor of maintaining birthright citizenship. And
maybe 8-2. I mean, not 8-2. That's impossible.
7-2?
Maybe 7-2 because Alito's also a scomeback.
If there was a dissent, it would be on much narrower grounds. Then like birthright citizenship doesn't exist. That's completely incompatible with any serious reading of the Constitution. If they strike down birthright citizenship, then you should assume that no Supreme Court decision from here on out until there's a different Supreme Court has any legitimacy as a legal matter, even if it's enforced.
Because that's plain language of the law shit. It's just straight up plain language of the law.
I mean, the Supreme Court is interpreting the law, but they're not the law. The law is the Constitution.
They don't get to abrogate constitutional amendments.
Yes, they're not allowed to do that. Let's see. Attempting to reach out to the military on disobeying illegal orders as a grassroots effort. I think communicating to military people, that they're obligated to follow the law is a good thing, and there's resources for them to talk to if they have a question about it, in terms of knowing what their legal responsibilities are and getting them protection if they believe they're being asked to do something illegal. How's getting your Coke, Varn?
It's fine. I didn't go I got a 6-pack. That's why we
nice. Yeah, I was concerned you'd have to drive out again, and then I'd be left on the call
for an hour. Since no, I just wanted to get my Coke.
You can go back later and listen to my No King story. I think the chat was funny.
Why doesn't the left try to make allies, at least in the lower ranks of the military? You kind of need them to win anything. Well, you do, and one I think is imperialism, and I don't think leftists always know how to separate people who are actors within a system from the system itself. And it makes sense because in the military now, there's not a draft. There's not even a poverty draft anymore. People who think there was never a poverty draft are wrong, but the poverty draft basically ended with the implementation of drones in the Obama administration, if you want to figure out the mechanism for that. Also, for those of you who wonder how, the shithole parts of the country stayed not shithole, there was 2 ways. One was direct investment from the government, and the other was indirect investment of the government by putting a military base there and all the subsidiary things holding on to that. Both those things have been drying up over the last 20 years. Military Keynesianism has been largely ended not completely, but in a very big way. So that's why a lot of these places that were hit by I mean, when we talk about the South and the West, they weren't industrialized in the first place. The Southeast was its major industries was textiles and bricks and paper. I don't know what you know about heavy industry, but those are heavy industries that usually follow the shittiest part of a capitalism supply chain, which is why they're now in Bangladesh. So the South was never deindustrialized. It wasn't completely industrialized ever.
We're bringing them back. We're attempting to do the great leap backward. That's the economic policy of the Trump administration, an effort to turn the most successful industrialized economy in the world into a pre-industrial state.
I mean, one of the problems that you have is technical Marxist stuff that everyone rolls their eyes over, even though they claim to be a revolutionary when I talk about. One is the organic composition of capital is different. And people were mad that I don't put stuff in way working class people can understand, even though I come from a blue collar background, motherfuckers. I figured it out. So I'll say this very clearly. Automation means that everywhere, including in China, actually, it takes less people to make goods. So the capture on those goods is higher because labor is expensive anywhere on the planet relative to local costs. Now, if you have no labor, though, eventually you have no variable capital and things go to cost, which is why you want to shift things into rents. That's why this is the smart form of the neo-feudal theory. I say the smart form because there is no real smart form, but this is the least stupid form. The issue is, though, that you can't do that forever. So you have to have some kind of productivity. Trump has tried to reindustrialize, as had Biden. You know what? Doesn't lead to the same amount of jobs it did in the 1950s. Now does it?
Yeah, especially depending on how you're trying to do it. Because if you're doing
Right.
it doing massive subsidies, that will result in some jobs. And if you're doing it by just doing random tariffs on like tomatoes, it's going to hit other industrial sectors. And it's much more of like a pick and choose thing. Because people import goods in manufacturing all the time to make finished products. We don't have an autarkic economy.
No, I mean, and in fact, what we are doing with these tariffs is destroying our actual production capacity.
Oh, for sure.
Because we don't have an autarkic economy. And so now people are changing the final end of the supply chain to somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And we have antagonized China. China has also antagonized us, but we have particularly antagonized China. Interestingly, that's one thing that Trump has backed off on, is the antagonism of China. In fact, China actually, until the Maduro thing, liked our national security statement, even though it sounded weirdly white nationalist. They were totally okay with it. I'm not blaming people. Hear this and they think I'm blaming China, and I'm like, no, they're just being pragmatists. It's like it ends the pivot to Asia. Like, of course they would like that. That's not, it doesn't, why? They don't care about what stupid rationale we give it. Why do you think Rittenhouse should have been found guilty of manslaughter when the guy was actually charging at Rittenhouse aggressively? Because he had an AR-15 and the guy had a skateboard. And if I say manslaughter, I also would say man too. Like, it would be excessive force.
I don't know enough about the case to say anything.
I don't think any court could have convicted him of murder. And I know that it's very unpopular to say on the left. I often get very mad at leftists when they go on their moral instincts for what something should be tried for. And they often will put pressure on prosecutors to push for more than they should, which will condemn the case. I mean, I know I don't think you work in criminal law, Elijah. I'm not a lawyer.
At an undisclosed district attorney's office for a semester as an intern.
Okay,
so I have a little bit of knowledge about this, but not very much.
And state laws are very different. Do I think what happened? I don't know why leftists don't point out that the cops deliberately corralled the protesters into counter protesters who were armed, which I saw the video. I've seen the schemas. It's clear as day that happened. I don't hear leftists talk about it. Because yeah, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I haven't thought about the Rittenhouse case in probably 2 years.
I think about it all the time because I got yelled at a lot for having a very unpopular opinion about it.
Yeah.
Wisconsin is gun happy. I mean, Utah's gun happier, just so you know. Like I can carry I can conceal carry as a teacher without a permit. I have a permit, but I can conceal carry. People like Varn, why are you telling us not to? I don't own a weapon. I just have a permit, like in case I need to. Like I got rid of all my guns when I was 29 years old. And I have not regretted it mostly. Sometimes I've thought about it, but then I'm like, no, I probably don't need that. I need to have a Mauser in my house because that would be great.
Usually more dangerous in terms of safety to own a weapon than not own a weapon.
Right. Although let's also be honest, most of what happens with guns is nothing.
Yeah, most of like gun use is hobbies, basically.
Right. It's like when I tell people this, I'm like, yeah, mostly like nothing happens at all. Then the next most likely person you are to kill is yourself. Then the next most likely person you are to kill is your loved one. Then you're likely to get killed by a cop. And then maybe it might come into play. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that's the order of operations from the statistics anyway.
Yeah. Oh, do you want to talk about the American Peronism thing?
I would love like Peronism would be like slightly more progressive than this.
Well, Peronism has been everything. Like Peronism has been like
it's kind of like fascism, like that. In fact, Peronism's even been fascism. But no, go ahead.
I mean, it is similar to Peronism in that it's like a highly individualized populist order, vaguely deriving.
I can't, but there is such a thing as left Peronism. I cannot imagine left Trumpism existing.
No, you got MAGA communism.
Yeah, but MAGA that's different in that like there are all kinds of ideologies that don't have to actually do anything because they only exist on the fucking internet and with like
it's like hearts of iron for ideology.
I know anarcho-monarchist. I don't take them seriously either.
Yeah,
but
it's all warp.
But
all the way down.
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think
it might be LARP even in the actual government at this point.
We have like a Reddit occupied government. Like it's completely obvious. Like these people are just like performing for one another. They literally did the South Park episode of flipping the food pyramid upside down. I mean, this is the dumbest stuff ever. It's like it's chud occupied. Very goofy. The Peronism thing, I do think that we don't talk enough about how similar Trumpism is to some forms of like Latin American populisms.
I do all the time. I did a whole thing on Codilioism and Bonapartism and Caesarism. But yeah, go ahead. That's just
the royal we, I guess. Me.
Just don't include me here. I'm not. No, I have talked about it.
And I think from a legal perspective, one thing which is interesting is that this often takes off in systems like ours with a strong president because there's an incentive to concentrate power in the hands of the executive.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think Trumpism is like relatively more fascistic than other forms of global authoritarianism, including like Orban or Bibi in some way.
Well, the funny thing about Orban is Orban is the only one of these right populists who actually does do populist financial policies. He's it. I can't find another one who actually does it. Everybody else talks a good game, and then they never, ever, ever deliver anything populist. They tend to be neoliberal. Well, they tend to be neoliberalizers in one country.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is that the like populism, even right populism, has typically sought to integrate itself more closely into the global economy. Right. Because, say the EU was like a real boon for Hungarian national development. And populists in Latin America who were authoritarian on the right, left-wing authoritarians also attempted to integrate themselves in the global economy in the same way. One thing which is really remarkable about Trumpism is how autarkic its impulses are, which is much more similar to classical fascism from an economic perspective.
Right.
The Trump is Trump still neoliberal question?
Yes, in the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what neoliberalism
The
is
whole
anymore.
deaf neoliberalism shit is dependent on people not knowing what neoliberalism is. And neoliberalism is not globalization. All economies have been globalized. Neoliberalism is a specific arrangement of public-private partnerships where the private partnership has owning control over public stakes, but it has been given to it by governmental fiat.
Yeah, if it's the creation of private markets for public goods, which I think is related to it, certainly there's
then
still rampant privatization. One thing which is different now is that there's more of an instinct by the state to pick the winners and losers than there's been in the
right.
past.
Well, that's also if people were good fucking Marxists. No, anyway, it's because we live in a it's because despite the fact that people can't tell the difference between profits and revenues and thus think profits are high, I'm looking at all of you who told me that like there's no such thing as a tendency to the rate of profits to fall. Profits per item on physical commodities are low, which is why everybody wants to turn things into rents. Period. End of discussion. Like, and that doesn't mean that there aren't profits to be had. There's also lots of revenues, but the confusion between profits and revenues, which GDP does not really separate, by the way, that's part of what it makes it distorting, is why people confuse a lot of like people getting more and more rich as individuals as somehow proof of high profitability. It's actually usually the opposite.
Yeah, like in feudalism, for example, you had a bunch of very wealthy individuals who were getting rich, but they were getting rich from rents, and by suppressing like other parts of the economy, which is not the same as the neo-feudalism thing. It just demonstrates like just having a high degree of wealth inequality tells you very little about the actual profitability of society.
Yeah, because the profitability of feudalism was basically 1%.
Yeah.
Like, and that's based off GDP growth. So it's probably even less than that. Feudal societies were basically steady state are declining at all times. They barely ever got better.
Wait, I like this comment saying that by Ian saying he understands or they understand what socialism in one country is, but what is neoliberalism in one country?
Public-private partnerships that try to pretend that they can close off from the international market. The going is you can't.
Yeah,
like
that's out of the bag.
Like we're gonna make our own. I mean, honestly, Biden tried to do it more than Trump has tried to do it. Like with chip manufacturing,
onshoring, and stuff like that.
Yeah. All Trump's done is like made things more expensive for people in order to incentivize producing stuff at home in ways that make it harder to produce stuff at home.
And doing literal fraud. That's just like his main economic policy is him getting wealthy. By doing like rug pulls on like fake crypto schemes.
Right. And also, let's also be clear. Kilgore is right. Kilgore Kraut. And let's be real here. A lot of the nominal wealth for the very top is not valorizable to anything close to its valuation. I'll explain that to normal people. You can't sell it for what it's valued for, so the value is fictitious. It's not real. I know that MNPers get mad when I talk about fictitious capital, but let's just say this. If something is overvalued, the overage is fictitious. And the only way to know if it's overvalued is to try to sell it.
This is like, for a practical example, like a lot of this is the AI stuff. Is it a bubble? Is it not a bubble? We'll find out, right? Like,
I will point how it's different from the housing bubble, though, in that what allowed all this AI investment to happen was captured investment that was kept offshore in offshore accounts that was allowed in 2018 and 2019 for a brief year under the last Trump administration, and then they sat on it still because there was nothing for them to invest in. Now they're pouring that money in. It is actually basically the 20 years of tech wealth going into it that's attracting the other people to invest into it. So, but that's the initial money. Now, does it make any sense? No, but it doesn't. But in this case, when I tell people like it's not going to look like the housing market, it's going to look like the 70s. it means that the deflation will probably be slow because these people are throwing their own money into it. I still think it's cooked, but as they're trying to get out of that, who's stepping in? The government, but they don't want to do an open bailout. So we tie into Grok into national security stuff cause reasons.
Well, I think that's not even like it might be the tech people wanting a bailout, but it's just like
I don't think that Hexef is thinking about a bailout when he does
no,
it. I
Hexef
think
is
the
like
tech
we're gonna
people
make
know
the
what they're
military
doing.
do AI, you know,
Right.
like there's no thinking going on here. And I assume data security for Twitter is not sufficient for military standards. You know, like we're gonna find out like OPSEC is really, really bad.
Well, we are talking about people who use Signal for national security briefings. So,
I mean, I guarantee you that there's assets.
Although I trust Signal way more than I trust Grok. So
yeah,
but
I guarantee you there's assets of foreign intelligence services hanging out doing the East Wing renovation right now. Like just hanging out in the White House. I think that's extremely likely.
I mean, it would be dumb if they weren't.
Yeah.
Like,
building the ballroom.
There's also going to be additions made to the West Wing. Did you see that?
No, I think the first act of any future president should be to demolish the ballroom.
No, I'm okay with them keeping the ballroom and turning it into a public museum.
You know, like a monument to the victims of Trumpism.
Yeah, like something like that. Like,
yeah, Grok didn't come up with Mecha Hitler. Grok announced it was Mecha Hitler.
I remember hearing about the commercial real estate class was going to happen. Will it happen or has it? It's been slow rolled. There is a slow roll commercial real estate crisis. The issue is though, again, there's a lot of investment money that can keep that propped up off of tax rebates for a while. And people don't seem to know. Like when I explain to people that like you can use YIMBY tactics to like slow down or maybe even flatten the increase of rent, but it'll never lower it. People are always confused about that. And I'm like, it's just not going to do it because what's going to happen is if you are a large investor, and believe it or not, most of the large investors are not private equity. Trump, big thing about private equity, like Blackstone owns like 2% of the housing market or something. Like most investors are just rich guys. But if you look at like just housing investment, right? If you have the money to put it up and wait it out, you can save on taxes your rent value because that's a loss. And you can just write it off as a full loss at full current market value, which means there is not much incentive to lower the price because if your tax assets are high enough that you could use that to hit zero, you might as well and keep it at the current price to do it. And I know that there are laws you can pass that would mitigate that. Thing is, people aren't passing them. So that's why now, if you build a lot of housing stock, it will help. Like rent increases have slowed in the Salt Lake area, but they have not gone down. They've just slowed. And we built a ton of housing stock. Like we're turning things into housing stock that doesn't make sense to turn into housing stock. And there's going to be dramatic overcapacity eventually. Yeah. But again, if people can hold on to it, I don't know how long that game can be played. I don't think anyone does. But that's the game.
I want you to respond to this, Varn, that we've got a suggestion about calling one of the Patreon VIP rooms the ballroom.
I don't have a VIP room, so
higher tier than the parrot room and the champagne room.
You sell that to TIR. They have that. I give most of my shit away for free, peeps. Like it's actually amazing how many subscribers I have, given that what they get for it is audio and like 2 extra shows a month. 3 extra shows a month. it would be kind of better if few private equity firms owned most rental housing. Actually, yeah, I'm not sure about that, but it might actually be better because economies of scale. Do you guys think Trump is even running the show half the time? I don't know. The thing is, I think probably not, but the difference between this time and last time is last time he went in under the guidance of Jared and Ivanka, probably, and that's kind of speculation, but we
He
just
also
kind of
went
know
in
it.
last time at like 74 versus 80, you know,
Right.
or like whatever, like 72.
Right, and he had a bunch of insiders who told him no, but he had competent people in charge. What he learned, and I will say, good Professor Dr. Cuba and good Professor Dr. Burgess actually was right about this. It's put in loyalists like you're a fucking mob boss. Like, and the more incompetent or weird or highly dependent on you, the better, because they'll go down with you. So in a sense, he's probably not running the show in a de facto way, but his spirit runs the show in his selection.
Yeah, I think he's spending probably an enormous amount of time supervising White House renovations, and then offloading various other things to other people.
I suspect Miller is running a lot of the domestic programs, and Rubio is running a lot of the foreign ones. If you look at, like, I hate to do criminology on our own damn president, but if you look at who's close to it looks like they use JD Vance just to do OPSEC for their own people.
Yeah.
And Rubio seems increasingly close to the president.
Well, every day they give Rubio a new job where it's like Rubio acting president to Venezuela, or like whatever. Like, he's like 10 positions now.
I think okay. I know that Delcy Rodriguez is technically the president of Venezuela right now.
Yeah.
And I know that Trump claimed that he was acting president on one of his stupid True Social posts, but who knows? I mean, like, if he actually thinks that or not.
Well, he announced it, therefore it must be.
God, I miss when we had controversies about allowing the president to have a fucking BlackBerry.
Yeah, that was awesome.
You remember that, Elijah? Yeah. Because you were like 8.
Yeah, it was tiny. I was like 10. Yeah, I mean the goal in Venezuela does not appear to be anything. Like, they just wanted to like play with their fancy toys, and then now they've got to get rid of Maduro. And now Rubio wants to negotiate with new people. Yeah, you saw a meme saying ICE deported Maduro by accident. Do you think
that'll happen?
What?
I mean, that's just a joke, right?
Like, it is a joke.
Look, we live in a time where I can't tell reality from memes anymore. That's actually a real thing. So, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I know that a lot of the left was really stoked on Maduro. I know they haven't liked talking about the actual context of like his failure, which I don't even, like I've said, I don't even think it's his. Well, I mean, he didn't help, but I don't think it's primarily his fault. He could have done things like make 4 ways with Brazil or whatever, and he couldn't do that. But
yeah, I mean, I'm not a Maduro fan myself. But it's a serious violation of international law to like kidnap the president, and that's, you know, bad enough.
And I'm just not going to legislate on like the legitimacy of election that I couldn't prove one way or the other. Like, so it's not my place to say. I will say though that if it is surprising to me that only 100 Venezuelans died, if there would have been a popular support to keep him in power, even within his own party, and there must have been collaboration within the Chavistas for this to happen.
I think that's fairly likely.
Like, I just can't imagine you like only losing 100 people, 32 of whom are Cubans, if that wasn't the case.
Yeah. see.
And also, like, yeah, I mean, when people talk about Democrats would probably love to go. I don't think they would have done this. I think they would have been doing the same shit with Iran that Trump is doing, if I'm completely honest. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They wouldn't have pulled out of the Iran deal in 20 whatever.
Yeah, but I saw how Kamala Harris was talking.
Yeah, I'm not running defense here. I'm saying like it might be different, it might not have been different, you know. Uh
I really thought that Biden would try to put the Iran deal back in, and he never did.
Yeah.
Because both sides, like, I thought, even though trust had been broken with Iran, like, it seemed like there was at least a large party who kind of wanted it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so many messes going on. It's just a mess everywhere.
Absolutely. And also, people got mad at me. I think they got mad at me because I said that multipolarity was going to lead to this, and they thought that I was making a claim that multipolarity was bad. And I'm just like, no, it's just statistically most likely that this is when you start dividing up continents, that's what I try to do. Although it does look like Trump is trying to have his cake and eat it too on that, by like also being like, we're going to consolidate North America, even if it means trying to be an imperialist to the entire fucking planet at the same time. But a lot of people have been very delusional. Like, I don't want to get into the Palestine stuff because it's still ongoing and still quite sad. But I think a lot of people thought that other countries were going to step up that I never believed were going to step up and have not. Like, instead the countries that stepped up were countries that had no power to do anything about it. Like, I don't know, South Africa.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Iran? Are the protests winding down or not? I'm not sure what I trust. We have no idea. I don't think anyone really knows.
I think like the most that can be said is it's very obvious to me that the regime there killed massive numbers of people over the past week. I think that's definitely true. How many? I have no idea.
Yeah, I do think that's probably true, sadly. I also think here's the paradox. There is also a high likelihood that, given the right-wing nature of what's going to come after this, that the regime we might get after it might be worse, whether or not the protests win or lose.
That's true everywhere.
Yeah, that's always a possibility. I think in this one, it's a real possibility. There's no viable left-wing grouping in Iran to really take power right now. The Shah is, I don't want to talk about that guy. We've already talked to Gene about it, Gene Bajelon about it. He's come on the show and talked about it a week ago. We both feel like it's like either option is bad, and we just kind of have to accept that that's the world we live in.
Yeah. I'm, as an individual, I have the liberty to be against many things at once.
Yeah.
And I'm going to avail myself of that.
Someone wants to talk about uniting Latin America. I don't know. Maybe. So far that hasn't happened, though. That's because the right and left in Latin America are pretty much still at pretty extreme odds, even though they're all feeling threatened by the United States.
Yeah.
I think the big thing to look at is what Central America doing. Steinbaum's been a genius at diffusing Trump multiple times without pissing him off.
A huge part of that is that Trump thinks she's pretty. Like, she's been great, but like, I do think that is something to emphasize. Like, it just, whatever is the dumbest thing possible is probably true.
There was a time, Eli, that I thought that was being unfair, but after looking at most of the women in this administration, it seems pretty clear to me that seems to be the primary criterion.
He likes Zoran because he's like a handsome guy. Like, I mean, it's unbelievable. This is ridiculous. Are we going to get numerous women heads of state now? I think that would be a useful strategic move on the part of countries being bullied by the United States.
So when we get our first female president, will it be Erica Kirk?
I hope not. Yeah.
Well, historically, the odds are that your first female president is a flaming reactionary. Mexico is actually the exception to this.
Yeah. I guess arguably also Golda Meir. But like
that was tough. That was
complicated scenario.
Someone said Bina Cerbuto to me once, and I laughed. I'm like, you don't know anything about her policies if you think that.
Yeah, just everything going on is the dumbest possible thing. That's just the way it is now.
I do want to ask a question, though. Why do we think that America being dumb, this is one thing I think we lose in these discussions. Like, America does seem particularly dumb. But then I look at Britain, and what the fuck is happening?
I mean,
and then I look at even the domestic politics of the EU countries internally, not the EU as a whole, but like,
yeah,
it's nuts right now. Like,
yeah,
it's not just us.
I think everybody's gone completely mad and been driven crazy by the online.
So that's why Mexico's sane, because Mexico is kind of cyclic with the rest of the planet.
I feel like probably the best way to like prevent your country from going mad is to like reduce social media use in some way. I mean, we really need to get Trump out so that I can go back to dunking on how dumb European politics are. But you know, not much chance of that happening anytime soon.
No, my European listeners get a respite for a few years of me picking fight. This is always happens when Trump's in power. I'm like, I don't know though. I feel like the one thing I will say that happened I've said this before, but is like the US liberal and left obsession with Europe as an ideal place has actually kind of finally broken.
Yeah.
In the last 6 years, which makes me feel good, because I don't have any real disregard for Europe, obviously. I hope that's obvious that even the English are people.
I love my European and English brothers and sisters.
I wouldn't go that far, but the Europeans are okay. And I'll give the Scottish, the Welsh, and maybe even the West Midlands some due. But anyway, Macron is liberal Hitler and Starmer is liberal Britain. I mean, here's the thing: is like, I have a friend, a very close friend of mine, who I talk to on the reg, that I become friends with working with them on the New International, even though I've only written one article for him, and I'm supposed to deliver a review of Jasper Burns' book. And like everyone who's ever asked me to write things, I'm like, I have 3 jobs. What do you expect? But to get back to this, we were talking about Mélenchon, and I'm just like, the French left. Another friend of mine is like, I wish we had the militancy of the French. They really protested when Macron did this. And I'm like, the funny thing is, though, Macron's still in power and the retirement age still got raised. So I don't know what it really led to.
I don't know if it prevents much from happening.
It's like, okay, so the French people have fun and set stuff on fire, you know, and I like a bonfire, but
just to like announce like a new thing, like a new Jupiterian situation going on.
Yeah,
every week. So I love him as a guy. I'm very pro. Starmer, on the other hand, I don't like him as a guy. It's that simple. You know, I'm poisoned by the online the same as everybody else. Whoever
I don't like either one of them.
Whoever stands up against our country, I support. I'm a revolutionary defeatist when it comes to United States action abroad now.
Oh, you know, to be a true revolutionary defeatist, you have to wish that both sides lose. But go ahead. Maybe you do. Maybe you are actually the most consistent revolutionary defeatist. That you're like, first defeat America, then defeat yourself. I mean, it's the French. I'm not going to talk about French sexual customs. Like,
I don't know enough about anything going on anywhere else.
French protests against Jospin's neoliberal reforms in the 1990s worked. Yeah, but that's the last time they worked.
You know, the BLM protests here work too at their goal of electing Joe Biden president. Protests often have a funny way of working out.
You know how mad at people got with me when I said that was probably what it was going to lead to? You get a Democratic president and it's like a more liberal Hollywood, and then everything would move in the opposite direction. And people got mad at me for saying that.
Yeah.
Like
the what about China and all of this? I really like subscribe my political, like my geopolitical worldview is shaped by that meme where it's every single country simultaneously stabbing themselves at the same time. You know, everybody is currently on like a crash course to see if they can defeat themselves.
China's kind of not. I mean, like, what? Why do you think that China's defeating themselves? Like, I do worry about some Chinese policies in the long run, but like, they seem to be like when I go through my great powers checklist, I'm like, America, batshit crazy. Europe, moderately insane.
Yeah. I think a lot
India,
of
I have no fucking idea.
I think a lot
like
of
I go to China and I'm like, oh, they kind of seem logical, sort of. Like,
well, they
more than
still
everybody else.
just have like the same problems they've had for the past like 2 decades, which is that domestic consumption has not filled in for an export-driven economy, and a domestic stock market has not been developed. And they're temporarily
And
being
also, they don't have socialism yet. So those are the other. Like, I mean, you could go one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, like it's I don't think the long-term future of the Chinese economic model is that promising. I think that we are helping maintain its viability for longer by forcing various people to like work with China more than they did before.
China's domestic savings are very high, but domestic savings do not make an economy one way or the other.
Yeah, and they're mostly in real estate, as far as I'm aware, which is not
highly
actually,
viable,
and it's not that helpful for like reinvestment elsewhere.
The transition to consumer consumption is possible, but it isn't happening.
Yeah,
and it hasn't happened. They were having a deflationary crisis, and because of that, until we started destroying everything.
Yeah.
So,
that got old before getting rich. Yeah, that's like the big thing, right? Like it's the that's kind of the question about the long-term viability of the Chinese model.
They have a lot of consumers like the most, like you think it would work. Well, yes and no. I mean, one is China has moved more people out of poverty than any society.
It's a tremendous achievement. I don't
absolutely true. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm belittling that, but it has not led to a middle class purchasing lifestyle. And I don't even know. I mean, sometimes I'm like Emmanuel Wallerstein in this. I don't even know that we should hope it would. Like,
yeah, I mean, more it's just like if you want to be the preeminent global power, there are certain things you have to do. You have to be like the center of the financial world. You have to be able to project militarily everywhere, or in more places.
And they can do some of that. They could project militarily way more than they do. They don't have a taste for it, and I think the world should be grateful that they don't.
Yeah. The point from Kilgore is also really a great one. Yeah, they have low sovereign debt, but they're sitting on huge liabilities at the provincial and municipal level. Totally true. And the messing about the housing market has been really bad for those municipal liabilities. Because either the government's going to have to step in to put more money into the provinces, or they're going to have to find out another financing mechanism, both of which are pretty difficult to do and draining on the economy. Which is like the reason why I say that, like, we've bailed them out by being so dumb, because we've allowed them to keep these crises from happening for a little while longer, which is not like I don't mean to sound like the Economist cover every like few years being like, will China last? Is the regime about to collapse?
It is not about the collapse.
It's not about to collapse, but the type of economic growth we've seen is not, in my view, sustainable.
No.
Run.
And they haven't had it for almost a decade now. I mean,
Yeah.
GDP growth has slowed in China. I've been trying to point this out like dramatically from 2007 to now.
Yeah, which you can see in,
Um,
like, electricity consumption and, like, the alternative
right.
ways of calculating it.
Um,
Quickly on the Powell v. Trump, they pulled the indictment. Powell is going to remain chair up until his term ends.
yeah, because basically the GOP was like, no, you don't do that. That will
Yeah.
That will
Well, we
piss our
could get a
money people
freak in
off.
charge of the Fed next time around, so that could be exciting.
I mean, it's going to be interesting if you try to induce a hyperinflationary crisis.
Oh, it's gonna be great. We're doing stagflation, baby. We're like,
We're already doing stagflation, like
yeah, I mean,
stagnant hot jobs, and inflation, like stagflation.
the U.S. economy has been surprisingly robust, considering the issues. But it's much easier for the government to mess up the economy than it is to make it better. And so we're really trying very hard to mess it up, and it's proved surprisingly resilient, which is not to say it's doing well. It's to say it's not collapsing as much as I thought it would based on all these policies.
Well, but then when I think about a couple of things, like how many people are leaving the job market, and it's
Yeah.
not because they're losing their jobs, it's because they're retiring. And
Yeah.
that's like I do think the unemployment rate would be significantly higher if it wasn't also going on during the end of the baby boomers being in the workforce completely. Like
Yeah.
they're all going to be gone soon. I don't mean they're all going to be dead. I just mean they're getting to the point they can't continue working. So, and I also think historically stagflation is more of a norm than people realize. Like if you look at the 19th century and the early 20th century, it's like, well, actually, let me rephrase that. In the 19th century, stagnation, not stagflation, because the 19th century money worldwide was remarkably stable.
Yeah.
Like incredibly, value maintenance was pretty stagnant. And it's actually one of those things to think about with Marx. This is a critique of Marx I actually have thought about, because Marx doesn't talk that much about inflation as a mechanism all that much, because he didn't live in a time where it was really a problem.
Yeah.
The 19th century,
I mean, the way finance worked in the 19th century is totally different. I mean, we still had the gold standard in every country, and you would only have like greenbacks or real inflationary periods, either if there's like a sudden influx of gold, which would happen every time a new ship came over from like the Americas laden with silver, in like the 1700s, or when different countries briefly experimented with fiat currency. Primarily, I know about the American context of the Civil and Revolutionary Wars, both of which were pretty rapidly abandoned because they were so inflationary.
Right. Which MMTers always ignore when they bring those up. I'm just going to point that out. They always bring up that money is a creation of law, which is true. What they ignore is money as a creation of law is only stable if people believe if there is a dominant power that can A, secure it, or B, there is a commodity that can secure it. And if you want to see what China is doing to offset this, they're buying gold.
Yeah.
Like massive amounts of gold. So I was thinking they're like, yeah, it's always been my thing with China. As Wallerstein said, they're likely to be the next hegemon, but along the passing the torch from the Portuguese man of war ships, the Dutch to Britain to America, China seems unique in having a chance to keep the U.S. as a pace car, letting it lead global consumption and to burden to police the world with their own tax dollars, while benefits go to China.
That's not really hegemony. I mean, like if you're letting the U.S. police the world, that means that you're not projecting your own force abroad, which is really limiting.
But to be fair, they don't want the domestic conditions that projecting your own force abroad. Like one of the things I said, like, why doesn't the yuan become the dollar and I'm like, because it would make producing in China too goddamn expensive, just like it did here.
Yeah. I mean, there's like China is seeking a multipolar world.
Yeah, which is already is a thing
which is already happening. So they're getting many.
They win. that way. But that doesn't fix all the other problems. I mean, I also think they're handling AI better than us. One, we're not really competing with them. Two, they're not wasting resource on it like we are. And three, in so much that they are using it, they are using it to deal with their declining population. But one thing that I've pointed out that the anti-imperialists don't seem to love is I'm like, China's not industrializing the rest of the world. It isn't doing that.
Yeah.
A Chinese factory built in Africa does not really employ that many Africans. It doesn't skill that many Africans. It doesn't keep much of the money locally.
And in my view, a lot of the Chinese investment in terms of foreign loans and stuff like that is actually much more extractive than the IMF. Not all of it, but some of it is. And there are real efforts to reorient those economies to be more closely focused on buying Chinese exports rather than building up foreign markets.
Which, if it was the West doing it, we would call it imperialism. I just want to be explicit about that.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a bunch of different imperialist powers going on right now.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, though, I would much rather have a Chinese kind of imperialism than an American kind of imperialism. People seem to miss a lot of what I'm saying. I'm a Chinese defenseist because I think they're probably the least evil. That doesn't mean they don't have problems. And when people yell at you for talking about their problems, either historically or today, I mean, it's just don't look at that thing over there that we don't want you to look at.
Yeah. I'm for good things and I'm against bad things. So in terms of any country exerting influence abroad, if they're improving other people's lives and not attempting to dominate them, I'm for that. And if they're attempting to do terrible, evil things, then I'm against it. It might be very brave of me to say that, but I think that's the right course of action.
Yeah, the question for the century is how and when the PSO uses military force to cure markets, or if they do. It's been hesitant for good reason, and they're very hesitant. But if things get desperate, will they do it? I don't know. Probably. When you have a military as large as China's, just like the US, is eventually you use it even for stupid shit. I don't and I'm just hoping they continue their responsible power move. I really do. You know what though? You know how much influence I have in China? None. So I don't have a lot of influence here, but I have none there. And so, here's what I can tell you what we do know. President Xi is not coming to save anyone outside of his own country, and quit being deluded about that. And then the other thing we know is that when we talk about the multipolar world, you do have the problem of the three great powers being right beside each other. The US is over here, you got Europe, but then you have Russia, India, and China, all plural national states, all up and coming. India is finally catching up some.
Yeah.
Right now they agree in light of the US. Yeah. Right? But those tensions will get higher as we fade. And you just look at the Kashmir border for the problems around that.
Yeah.
So what do I know? I don't know what the future holds, but the thing is there's much more points of volatility than just the US. We in America, even when we're criticizing our own internal bullshit, tend to overvalue ourselves because it's what we know.
And also I think some, even as a rational actor, some overvaluation of the US makes sense just because of its global reach, but we tend to overvalue it even relative to how it should be valued higher.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm not saying the U.S. has the potential to fuck stuff up for everybody.
Yeah.
And people, there was a lot of debate about, well, NATO will never pull all the bases, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't know, and you don't either. And a lot of Marxists, particularly middle-aged Marxists, have been very good at predicting nothing ever happens and being utterly wring. So I have been less sanguine on that.
Nothing ever happens ended in 2020.
People still say it all the goddamn time.
Yeah, we're in the happening. The happenings are occurring.
Would you say the DSA is the best vehicle for reform or revolution still, or do you think the development of something new would be better, even plausible?
I think the DSA is probably the best vehicle for reform at the current moment in time in the United States context. There's things I wish they would change, for sure.
I would actually be very interested in thinking what you would wish they would change versus what I wish they would change. But like,
I think they tend to have too much power given to kind of small and insular chapters. So like the New York chapter is much more professional than the national, in my opinion, for example.
yeah, but then the New York chapter is also what I would want to destroy personally.
I think they're the most successful one. So it's just that. I was a DSA.
Well,
member.
I mean, if the New York chapter is the model, my guess is you don't mean the same thing by reform as I do. Because
I kind of.
I don't think you're going to get much from their professionalization other than NGO aids.
Well, you remember how we actually had this conversation a while ago about DSA, where I said, and if somebody finds the video, like put it in a comment. I mean, you don't have to look into it, but if somebody remembers, where we're talking about the possibilities of the DSA, and I was like, maybe in the next decade they could get, say, a socialist mayor in New York City. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. That one,
well, you did.
I was
you
wrong
called
about
it.
Well, I guess in the next decade, flexible.
But I don't think he's a socialist.
I'll their vein of democratic, so whatever the popular lexicon of democratic.
I'm in the DSA, dude. I'm just gonna tell you, like, I don't think what Mamdani has put out is that much more radical than Bill de Blasio. I think we have underestimated progressives in New York.
Yeah.
And I think Mamdani might be more serious. The issue is, however, is like getting people to take the serious threat of muni bonds seriously, and then not to conflate. I've said stuff about bonds in general that people conflate with muni bonds, like, oh, if you tax the rich at the national level, you're paying the rich. I've said that. That's true, by the way. That's not the issue with muni bonds. The issue with muni bonds is, depending on the legality, they make you need coalitionary partners higher and lower than the executive of city.
Yeah.
You're going to need the city council, and you're going to need the state legislature or the governor, or both.
Yeah.
And the only way to get that is the threat of primaries.
Yeah.
Which the professionalism of the DSA could do. The issue that you have, however, with that professionalism, this is where I disagree with you, is it inclines people not to primary these people in order to be compensated. This is the issue with union professionalization as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is that eventually your professionals are a liability to your ability to challenge the people you need to challenge to get them to make concessions to you.
I mean, I'm going to be very upfront in that my vision is like Popular Front. Like, that is the limit of my vision.
We've also talked off air how I probably put you up against the wall, but like, I feel bad about it.
No, it's okay. You're not going to get the chance. But
no, I'm not really worried about that. But you should be careful about people you say won't get the chance to hurt you.
Well, I'm confident that you would take pity on me.
Oh yeah, of course I probably would.
I also mentioned how I thought it was a grave error of the left in the past to say that they were doing a Popular Front every election, because now when we actually need it in like this day and age, people distrust it for very obvious reasons. Like, we didn't need to do Popular Front in the 90s. Okay.
The problem with Popular Fronts, though, is the following: as soon as your enemy's gone, we turn on each other, and that's inevitable.
Fine. The enemy's pretty bad. Like, I'm under no illusions, right? Like, like, deal with the moment. Popular Front with who? Just like literally anyone who's anti-Trump, and is not like a Fuentes guy who's anti-Trump for that reason. Like,
I don't know that Fuentes is anti-Trump.
Like, I want Bill Kristol and the Party for Socialism and Liberation on the front lines of society together, arm in arm. That's what we need.
Oh boy.
On that note, should we call it for tonight?
We should probably end this while I think about why I ever had you on the show. No,
because of my charm and good looks. No, of course not.
No, it's because
yeah, I'm living out. I live once you guys embrace living out once in a while. Like, I'm not asking you to give up everything. I'm just saying log into Blue Sky once in a while and be like, Drumpf will be taken out. Like we will.
My favorite thing about this is I will say that I have had a little bit more faith in normies than leftists, because I've seen leftists talk about normalized stuff for way too long, and then like everyday people now. I mean, like, look, there are wine moms in Minnesota who talk like me right now.
No, they're like, it's like like Evelyn
and Adam Tooze is pretending to be Stalin.
Yeah,
and
I know.
So
I love the wine moms. I mean, like, the wine moms are on the front lines. They're drinking Sauvignon Blanc and heading to the front lines with cameras that they're filming vertically on, and they're going to win. They have the mandate of heaven. We took it away from them for 4 years, and they're going to get it back, and we're all going to prosper.
We'll see. The thing is, the enemy is also in the house. I mean, that's always the thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, because you and I share radically different opinions on Biden, and it took Gaza for people to come over to my side, but that fucking did it.
I wanted him to retire in 2022. Like, I'm not.
No, you weren't a Biden defender. You were not. Actually, weirdly, I was in this weird Marxist chat where there were some hardcore Marxists who were more pro-Biden than you, and that really baffled me. Well, because I'm not going to out who it was, but there were some.
No, I was not like pro-Biden. Like, I just like was like, yeah, he's doing some okay things. Like in 2021, 2022, I want to stress, like, I was pro-IRA. But yeah, I mean, like,
I was pro-IRA because it was not totally and completely stupid.
Yeah.
But like, look, this is what I tell people. Like, I'm not one of these people who's against any reforms, who thinks that if we just immiserate the working class, they're going to come to the revolutionary potential, because there's no history of that working anywhere on the goddamn planet.
Yeah.
Like, the only time I'm going to tell you, the only time I've ever found anything that even kind of looks like that is during a world war. And in a current situation, I don't know that most of the working class survives the world war in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're speed running whether like immiseration will outdo the impossibility of overcoming the sixth party system. Like, Trump is making strenuous efforts to turn the working class en masse back towards the left side of the political spectrum by destroying everything. So will he succeed? I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing, like, he has basically depoliticized and alienated Zoomer men who went right remarkably quickly.
No, it's great.
Like,
many of them are still insane, but like, I don't need them to vote. I just need them not to vote for Trump or the Republicans.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't have to worry about that. Don't worry. Do not worry, Elijah, that you convinced me to vote for a Democrat on a national scale.
Well, I'm not worried about you. I'm like, Zoomer men are a large group, which includes me.
Right, that's true.
Varn is the party of one.
That's absolutely true. Also, I'm a Gen Xer, which is another small generation. So people go, why do you say that? I'm like, small generations. Like, honestly, politically, guys, I hate to tell you this, but as soon as the boomers go away, we're never going to get rid of millennials. And they're going to be weird.
They're going to be like, their lingo is going to take over society.
Yeah. we're gonna have like it hasn't happened yet because the boomers been dominated, but I'm waiting for nostalgia about Occupy Wall Street and BLM to be pumped into TVs in 2040.
Gonna be great.
We're
gonna love it. You will be forced by our, socialist millennial president to take a, Harry Potter house test, and if you get Slytherin, you will be put against the wall.
Okay, yeah, that's lovely. At least I'm Varn voting a state that hasn't gone Democrat in our lifetime. Yeah, what does it matter? Like exactly. I do vote for local politicians. I vote in the national. I just always protest vote. I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie. They're like, you're throwing your vote away, and I'm like, yeah, but what does it matter if I'm not in a purple state? Like,
it's their job. It's their job to win you over. It's not
you have to convince me also, and you guys have never done that, and I'm not an unreasonable person. Well, maybe I am. The debate's open on whether or not I'm reasonable.
Yeah.
But look, I joined the DSA. I got bullied into that. I have taken back some of my criticisms of Magdani, although we're still gonna see. I still think we have to be careful. Like,
do you know why I left the DSA?
I didn't know you were ever in it.
Yeah, I was in it. All right. I left over the railroad strike.
Well, that's principled. Thank you. I am seeing if the partyists are serious. That's my stance. I suspect, given I can't go into it, but actually talking to people in the radical caucuses, what they say versus what they actually do is a problem. Here's one of the things I would change about the DSA. I wouldn't get rid of New York. I was just kidding about that, although they're annoying to me. But like, I do think you have a problem of people trying to mirror the New York strategy without understanding how New York has done it, which is the DSA as a force in the Democratic Party has been there for longer than the revival of the DSA.
Yeah, that's true. Also, greatest city in the world. Sorry, sure. I'm interrupting the
whatever. You live in New Jersey. No, I'm messing with you. Them's fighting words actually, and I don't even believe it. No, New York is one of the few major cities in America that I actually think is overrated, but I'm going to say this only because it's vastly rated, not because it actually sucks. Whereas LA, I hate. I do not like LA at all. I don't understand why anyone argues about LA being anywhere near New York in the it used to smell like piss, now it smells like weed. Well, like, have you yeah, I mean, you could be in Reno, which smells like both. No, I'm a big New York defender in the fact that if the progressives are going to mimic the culture of the progressives in either city, I will take New York over LA every single time. Because LA progressives are basically neoliberals at heart, and New Yorkers, at least they tasted Fordism and kind of know what it is. And they're better at dealing with, like, I think about the amount of money that New York spends on helping homeless people and the amount of money that California spends on helping homeless people, or LA and the Bay spend on helping homeless people. And you get way more for it in New York.
Yeah.
Like way more for it. The most underrated city in the country is Sacramento. No, that'd be San Francisco. Anyway, we're not talking about San Francisco.
Varn lives so I doubt he has some very many favorable feelings towards California.
Me? No.
Knowing how real estate markets are in the entirety of the West being affected by the sudden influx of Californians.
Decades-long influx of Californians.
Influx of Californians.
No, I can tell you how it's gone. We went from 10% under the national average on affordability to being in the top 25% most unaffordable states without the increase in pay.
Yeah.
So I got chased out of my own city. I technically live in the suburbs now because I could not afford it anymore. Oh man, How does everyone feel about San Francisco wars going on? I like this. I like the inner San Francisco feuds. I'm just gonna, for those of you who don't know, I actually have a relationship to San Francisco. In that my ex-wife family is from the greater Valley area around San Francisco, and my best friend lives in the greater San Francisco area. So I know the Bay very, very well. And I lament it. It was my favorite city in 2010, and it is not anymore. My other favorite city is falling into the ocean, and I mean that quite literally. It is New Orleans. And then my third favorite city is Savannah, Georgia, where my brother lives and I kind of grew up. And it's also falling into the ocean. So like
My first favorite is New York, and my second favorite is Brooklyn. I'm joking.
No, you're not. You're telling the truth.
Yeah, I love all the cities.
I
really like
just
Boise, actually.
If you want to know the two cities I dislike, I don't understand LA. I just don't get it. Every time I've been there, like it's unnavigatable, it's hostile to walking, it's the people there are I guess fine, but they look kind of plastic, and some of the most expensive shit I've ever seen in my life.
You can tell that I'm going to have naturally better politics than Adam too is, because he splits his time between New York and London, and the city I visited the second most recently other than New York is Paris. As a result, I mean internationally. So I'm this is my dunk on twos of the night.
All right. So if you were going to judge by cities, the city that I visit the most outside in Europe is Munich. And I haven't been to Europe in like 7 years.
Yeah.
But like I don't like Paris either, so they're probably not gonna. I've never been to the accursed Isle. So believe it or not, like I've never been to London. I think I'd like Edinburgh.
Now that we're in listing cities, I really should go.
All right.
It's 11 here.
I'm gonna let you go. I'm actually gonna rank the cities, which is
okay. Stick around, have fun. Thanks everybody for coming in to listen to me. Do I just click this thing on the bottom?
Yeah, you just click the thing on the bottom and go away. Bye. All right, now that he's gone, the lib is my one approvable lib friend. I love Elijah, just so you guys know. But he is way more of a lib. Varn, what do you think about Minneapolis? I have only been to Minneapolis once and not enough to like say a lot about it. I have several friends that live there. My favorite cities, I told you, it's what did I say it was? It used to be San Francisco, it's not anymore. New Orleans, the Bay Area. I like New York. I do actually really like New York, and not just because I have a lot of listeners there. I like St. Louis, even though it's kind of a shit town, but I like it a lot. Yeah. I am not a blue state guy. I know that this surprises you because everyone's like, "Oh, you're some kind of coastal elite." I actually am more culturally comfortable in relatively moderate to liberal cities and red states. Probably because I grew up in Macon, which is, yeah. I don't know how you city slickers can stand it. I also like the countryside, and I have lived, I've lived on farms, so, yeah. But I like St. Louis a lot. I like Detroit a lot. I think Detroit is massively underrated. I like a lot of the forgotten cities. I'm a big Midwestern city guy. And I like Atlanta because I grew up around there. I mean, I did go to school in Atlanta. But you know what I do when I travel? Do I go to cities? No, I get the fuck away from all this shit. I go out into the mountains. Like, if I had my way, I would either be in the mountains of Mexico or the mountains and the mountains and the Rockies in a like little place with no internet, believe it or not, and just my books, my wife, and probably a shotgun. Like, and maybe a small commune of people, so I wasn't too lonely. But like, I actually do not love city life. I like visiting cities a lot. So Detroit and I get along. Pro Detroit, pro Michigan in general. I grew up with a lot of Michiganders who moved to the South and a lot of Ohioans. My mom lived in Ohio for a while. Cleveland, however, is a shithole. Yeah, it's time to start ranking mountains. Mount Gerisham's pretty cool. No, this is a totally weird stream at this point. I just had to like end on not living out because Elijah is the most live friend that I have come on the show on a regular. And I always feel dirty because we basically agree on a very few things. Montreal is the best city. I like Montreal a lot. I haven't been to a lot of cities in Canada. I've been to Halifax and Montreal and Ontario. And I've been to Newfoundland and to New Brunswick. But yeah. Yeah, my mom used to live in Dayton, Ohio. So yeah. And I've never been to the Isles. Weirdly, because as world traveled as I am, I've actually never made it. I love Cairo. I love Seoul. I love, worldwide cities. It's a much bigger game. My favorite city in Mexico is probably Guanajuato, but that's very touristy. And I like Zacatecas a lot. I just love Mexico in general. Yeah. I'm actually happier in the suburbs than I thought. I miss rural life. I actually like it. I really wanted to take a job in Wyoming. Except I realized it sometimes be, hard to get out there. Recommended cities for physically disabled people in wheelchairs in the United States. Probably New York, honestly. And that's not even that great. But someone said Oakland. Yeah, actually, I like the area around the bay probably more. I like the bay itself. Oakland's great. Campeche is nice. District Federal is pretty cool depending on where you're at. I just love Mexico, man. I want to die in Mexico. I want to Ambrose Bierce myself, except without the getting shot and the revolution thing. So yeah. As much as I complain about New York, I actually really, like I said, I think New York's overrated because it's so rated, not because it's a bad city. It's actually great. So yeah. I don't know, man. I'm now doing regional chauvinisms. I'm cosmopolitan in that sense. I kind of like most places, but I think my favorite part in the world is the southern mountains in Mexico. And I also quite like the high desert, which is good because I live in it. Yeah, Cuernavaca. Yeah, cool. Oaxaca City is lovely. In fact, actually, it's probably my favorite city I've visited in Mexico. The other little town that I love, and I probably shouldn't tell people this, is Valladolid, which is on the way to if you're going between Greater Florida, aka the Playa del Carmen, and you go to what's that fucking city? Merida. Valladolid is on the way there, and it's a great little 15th century city. It's lovely. But I've never been to Hawaii either. I don't mind humidity. I grew up in Georgia. Merida is, cool because it's San Cristobal is great too. You know what? I'm a big Mexico partisan. Like, I love Mazatlan's great. But yeah, I'm a big Mexico partisan. Like, I lived there for 2 years. It was some of the best 2 years in my life. I haven't spent a lot of time on Rosarito Beach where Jason and Ben live, believe it or not, because I've spent most of my time in North and Central Mexico. I lived in Coahuila, which is, about 8 hours. I lived in Torreon, which is in the Laguna, which is not a lagoon anymore. It used to be, but it's not anymore. Which is like this, one of the second biggest cities in that region other than Monterrey. And Merida, decidedly mid. I don't know. There's a lot of places. I loved Guanajuato though. Like I said, a very touristy place to love. Rosarito Beach is probably fine. I haven't spent a lot of time in Baja California. I just haven't. Yeah. And I'm also a big partisan for Korea, but and I still remember my favorite parts of Seoul. So I used to hang out in Bundong, if you know anything about the greater areas of Seoul. People go, "How did you do this, Varn, as a working class guy? Telling other people to pay for it." I wasn't kidding when I told people it was easier and cheaper for me to move out of the United States than it was for me to move in the United States in 2009. Yeah, I was really happy because there's a Oaxaqueño restaurant near me, which is very rare in America, and I fucking love that shit. You can get champalines there, if you are so inclined. So yeah. Anyway, I'm now babbling about nothing, so I'm going to end this stream. I got stuff to do. It's finals week. I am still, for those of you who saw the poll, I'm still in the line about radical engagements. I'm going to still do it. Some I don't think I'm going to chapulines and Oaxacan cheese in queso Oaxaqueño. That's hard to say. Oh, great. But anyway, partisan of Korea, but he chose the South. Online communists going to be mad. I just never been to the DPRK. So how would I know? I mean, the online commies have called me a lot of things. And they're definitely going to call me after I have Elijah on, going all popular front on me, making me feel uncomfortable. But anyway, radical engagements going. I'm going to keep radical engagements going. Definitely for patrons. I don't think I'm doing book link stuff anymore, though. That just doesn't work. Have you read Daniel Bell and the Subversion of Collective Bargaining? Many years ago, but I have. Online commies are very weird about me. A lot of Marxist-Leninists listen to me, but also kind of hate me and then kind of don't. I don't know how to make up. I don't know what to make of it. Anyway, what does it matter about how we feel about each other anyway? I mean, it's parasocial bullshit anyhow. I'm going to go grade papers because I still got to do that. Finals week just ended and I got hundreds of papers to grade. And I'm going to go do that and do my other job. Take care, peeps. Protect your peace and all that. We're out.